I'm going to try to encourage a little more participation here. See if I can get Ty to tell us a little bit about some of those days.
I don't know which days you want to talk about or listen to.
The good days.
But I had a service station on 50th and Brand when I had the, well, before we made the Audi, we made hot rods. And I think I made 9 out of 13 of the first ones that went down to Farmington. And from there on it blossomed. And then we changed engines in the race car, number 6, from a DOL to an Offenhauser. And from there on we saw a lot of country. But I remember going over to Skoge's house once in a while as an advisor how to put the rear end together, because I think you put 5 rear ends under that thing and didn't get down the alleyway. Finally down one to go for it. But I was kind of interested in that hot rod area. And I've got a book up there that Stu Reamer set up. It's got a lot of details on that Farmington. And that's where Stu started with his broadcasting. And of course, you know where he went from there. He used to broadcast at the fairgrounds when Winkley was running. And then now I guess he's down at Raceway if he's still around. I don't know, is Stu Reamer still around?
Oh yeah.
Very much.
Chanhassen. He lives in Chanhassen.
I know where he lived, or did live.
Yeah, he still lives there.
With a Baghetti. He had that thing to rebuild. But that's about it.
Question, what was a 270 worth back in those days?
I paid $5,700 for it.
Brand new.
No, it didn't came in a case. The Express bought it out one day. And Walt Zabrowski, which was from northeast Minneapolis, was kind of running Myers and Drake. So I called up and that's what I got, and he says, "We'll send some money." So I sent him about $3 grand, and at that time he said it'd be about 6 or 8 weeks before I'd get it. Now he had money. Next week I got it. Well, the other part of it, the other $2,200 or $2,500 from American Express, they called me up in the morning and said, "We've got a parcel for you here." And he told me what the COD charge for was, and he wanted nothing but a certified check. So I said, "Okay, we'll do that." So I went out to the bank, got it certified, and he showed up, one truck with 2 guys, and the guy has a loaded revolver on him. And he finally said to me, "What the heck have you got in there?" I said, "I've got an engine in there." He said, "For what?" I said, "For a race car." Hey, he came out numerous times when that express truck came around to see what it looked like inside that crate. And it was people like Freddie Lehman and a gang of people used to come over and they'd pet those cams on the top. Gee, that's pretty.
Talking about guns and race cars, I remember one day sitting around in your garage, Type, and the telephone rang, and Type goes into the house to answer it, and he comes out, he says, "Get the car in the garage." "What happened?" He says, "Well, the police just called, the neighbors complained he'd been running around." He says, "They said they're going to be here in 5 minutes to chew me out, so get in the garage." So you had a better relationship with those guys than we did.
Well, they used to ride on the back on some of those tests that we made. Bushani.
Bruciani, yeah.
Yeah, Bushani. He had to do that, so he puts his hat on backwards, puts his feet on the spring, and hangs onto the cockpit, and away we go down the road. That's fun.
Bruciani, he was some tough guy. He was a sergeant. He always used to tell stories. I don't know if he was really tough or if he just told that he was tough, but I never wanted to find out. He'd talk about coming up from behind the bar with a sawed-off shotgun and blowing people away and all this stuff. And yeah, one Wednesday night, coming back home from Rex, and we'd all stopped and spent all of our prize money on the beer course on the way, and Butch Swenson.
Yeah.
Butch Swenson is going down Minnehaha Parkway there, and he just passed Donny, and Donny, of course, has got the race car on behind, and Butch is just hauling down there, and he jumps the curb at that place where it kind of goes into 2 lanes, hit 5 cars head on.
We had a slogan, John, about Bruciani. We go by and yell at him, "Yeah, holy, catch us if you can," and run us the other way.
Well, Bruciani turned up along with, all the ambulances and and a lot of cops, and he got to Donny, he says, get the hell out of here. So he left, and that was smart. And Butch, he was in training to be a policeman at the time, so no problem for Butch. I don't know what happened to 5 people. Who was talking earlier? Was that you, Jimmy, or somebody else talking about Donny's 33 Plymouth and the installation of the rear end? That reminds me about that too. That was you. Let's hear about that.
Well, that is one of his first encounters with doing some mechanical work by himself. He was working at Tisdale's part-time, so the rear end went out on the Plymouth. This is the first car he brought down from, where was that, Lake?
Dalton, Minnesota.
Dalton, Minnesota, yeah.
Beautiful. Dalton.
So, therefore, he decided to put a used rear end in it, third member. Pull the axles out, drive shaft out, put the rear end in, upside down. Backed all the way down to Tisdale's in high gear.
Yeah, I went for the ride, I remember that one.
16 at the time. No, 15. 15.
Well, we had our driver's licenses at 15, we were obviously qualified. We're talking about mechanicking on race cars. In those days, the race car population was there were a lot of kids around doing it, youngsters. And I remember across the street, kitty corner across the street from Tisdale's, where we worked, Donny and I, in his gas station on 50th and Penn, there was a Shell station owned by Paul Anderson, and Paul ran the 66 car. And Paul would, he kept a little bottle around, and he kind of just nipped along on it all day, so it didn't bother him too much, some of the things that the people who were employed by him did. And they used to get the 66 car there and burn circles around the pumps, you know, and I can't imagine how good it was for business. But one day, somebody was cleaning parts in a big pan of gasoline, large pan of gasoline, out on the ramp in the gas station. And of course, kids are not known for their safety consciousness and their awareness. So somebody lit a cigarette and threw the match in the gasoline. Of course, it lit. But what youth doesn't do with thoughtfulness, it makes up for in decision-making and quick reactions, right? So one of the guys quickly rushed over to the pan of gasoline, tipped it over, and it ran all the way across 50th Street. A sheet of flame burned for about 10 minutes. Speed's Pilots Club.
Oh, God.
Huh?
Oh, God.
Speed, Cliff, and Vern Mortison. Vern's the one that got killed, isn't he, Russ?
I think so.
Vern Mortison was the one that got killed. And Speed ran the race car. Cliff ran the club. I remember one notable date, state fair date, that rained out, and of course you couldn't drink any liquor, you couldn't have a bar open on Sunday, but it rained out, so everybody went down to the club and they opened it up, and really didn't matter how old you were. We had one hell of a party for that Sunday, you know.
The old club.
At Seven Corners.
I was on 7th, but there was the old club, not the club.
I only knew one club. It was down on Seven Corners.
Speed was that 701 seater.
Yeah, down Cedar.
701.
701 Cedar, yeah.
They moved across the street from the club.
But there were a lot of racers went to that club, especially state fair weeks. Boy, they all turned up, and there was a lot going on. It was a college hangout for me. I used to be over there about every night, and to be good friends with Cliff. Does anybody know what happened to the Mortisons?
All died.
All dead, huh? Happens, I guess. Another guy that was an interesting guy was Emery Collins, and he, of course, he had a 318 off you. He thought Tides was great, and 318, wasn't it? Yep. And of course, he was just king of the hill, and we wanted to buy. Of course, we just went around scrounged parts from anybody we could, and So we went down to Lamar's, Iowa one day, and we just, man, we walked into his shop. You took off your shoes to go in there. Absolutely meticulous in spare parts and an extra spare chrome frame hanging on the wall. And we just came away from there, you know, wow, what kind of an operation is this? Ours was a little different. Donny started driving, finally himself, when he got a little bit old enough. I think he cheated by a few months. And he did good. He was the best driver we ever had in the car. And he was a good competitor, good driver, good natural driver. I just wish the car had been up to his talents. But he did very well with it. I remember one disturbing time when we were racing at Owatonna, and he got a rock through the goggles and pushed an eye back so far in his head that you couldn't see the eye anymore. And we took him into the local hospital, and the doctor says, gotta take the eye out, we'll give you a glass eye. And Donnie says, no. Get me out of here, John. So my folks had come down to see the race, and I think they were in the Hudson or something, and we both piled him in the back seat, and he threw up all the way home and got to Minneapolis and got his own doctor, and that wound up being the best of his two eyes. So he made the right decision. That was a good one. We built a final car, finally, for the dirt track. Really, it was a conversion of engines, and it was a DO hell. And that thing leaked oil, and it might have been our fault. And that's kind of the end of my story. Who else wants to talk for a while? Here we go. Well, I got one about Staggerberg before he gets up here. I got one about Rex Racetrack and Jerry Staggerberg.
I resemble that.
Here it is. Now, Jerry is another guy that has had an uneasy relationship with authority. So here it is, and Jerry has not felt that he's been dealt fairly with by the race officials and the flag man in particular. So it comes the end of the race, and it's the cool down lap. Jerry's coming around on a 3/4 turn. He's standing up in the seat. He's bending down, and he's telling people like this. He gets everybody out of the way. They get out of the way. He runs into the flag stand and knocks it down.
I resemble that remark. We had we were invited to have a, is it on?
Yep, talk right into it. Talk straight into it.
Right, we got invited to have a hot rod race at the state fair. And I wasn't old enough to drive my own hot rod, but I had a body shop, and I sponsored, we had three hot rods with my Jerry's Auto Body on the side of them. My Beetle bomb was a 32 Ford with a Krager head and a Malay motor, and then my uncle had a Citroen, and he thought that would make a race car, and he bored it out so much the water would come out the spark plug holes. And then the piece de resistance. He had built a Cord race car, and he envisioned that as a world beater. Obviously supercharged V8. And what he did is he put the motor in backwards and put it in a 39 Ford chassis, and he put the cowl from the Cord. Now, for God's sake, why do you need a cowl with all these instruments in the race car? I never did figure that out. But we never did quite finish it. We didn't get a hood on it. We put the wheel out of a 38 Chevy 38 Ford truck. We shortened it up and narrowed it up. And the back deck lid was from a 41 Ford Coupe. Well, anyway, so I had three cars in the race. My dad, of course, wouldn't let me race because I wasn't old enough. And, oh, by the way, that Cord was built from Sonia Haney's Cord. Buzzy Thorne worked at Schneider Motors and the night crew washing cars. And after he got the Sonia Haney's Cord washed, he decided he had to try it out. He wrapped it around a tree on Summit Avenue. I'd like to have been there when she came and saw her Cord the next morning. So anyway, Uncle Sterling bought the remains of it, made this race car. Where was I at? I guess that's all I got to say.
Thank you, Jerry. Who's next? I saw another hand up there.
I had a question on I think it's your scrapbook. There's a picture of a sprint car, looks late 30s, had a heart-shaped opening in the radiator shell. It's got leather It's got leather up over the tail, over the headrest. And it looks like it must be in the early 40s. I can't remember.